Sabah Gurjiki Fateh. This week, the top 10 headlines have been tensions between Russia and Ukraine, the Rwanda immigration policy, the EU taking legal action after the UK proposed Brexit policy changes, attacks taking place in Afghanistan, a new British deadlift record being set, and the annual Central London 1984 Remembrance March. But first, we have some breaking news. 2 shooters have been arrested for the killing of Sidhu Muswala that police say carried grenades as backup. The News 18 stated, the Delhi Police Special Cell said all 6 shooters involved in the murder of the Punjabi singer Sidhu Muswala have been identified and large numbers of arms and explosives have been found. The accused have reported to have conducted multiple recesses before executing the murder. From the arrested, 8 grenades were found, 9 electric detonators, 3 pistols and 1 assault rifle. The police in the investigation thus far believe the accused were acting on the directions of Vishnoi and Rapara and 3 other gangsters. Now, onto news on Russia and Ukraine. NATO's chief has warned the West must prepare to continue supporting Ukraine in the war that will last for years. With conflicts between Russia and Ukraine having lasted months currently, internationally we have seen economic losses, fuel shortages and refugee crises. The UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has also warned of long-term conflict. While tensions rise and Russia makes stronger advancements, Mr. Johnson has said sending more weapons may be necessary for a victory for Ukraine, and perhaps needed if the war will last for a long time. As of yet, Ukraine is not a member of the EU, but the BBC has stated the European Commission has backed Ukraine's bid to give in candidacy status to join the EU, bringing it one step closer to joining the bloc. These conflicts have been a factor in inflationary pressures, which saw the Bank of England last week rise interest rates to 1.25%. This will see a greater strain on low-income households who are already battling energy poverty. As the war continues, we may see greater actions taken by the government and the Bank of England, such as the windfall tax and interest rate increases to tackle the economic effects of war. The next news, the Rwanda Bill. The policy was said to send asylum seekers to Rwanda, whereby their refuge claims would be heard there. Britain proposed this new asylum policy because they believed that illegally 25,000 refugees were attempting to enter British borders, which was dangerous and affecting the economy. The government has given themselves the right to change the law to shift the issue to Rwanda to deter illegal and dangerous migration. However, the policy is deemed immoral and costly and has been opposed by the Labour Party and even the Church of England. Last week, the first flight towards Rwanda was cancelled at the 11th hour. Originally 7 to 8 refugees were said to be sent out, which then went down to 1 before not taking off. After dozens of illegal challenges, it was the European Court of Human Rights who stopped the plane in its tracks. The European Court of Human Rights isn't to do with the European Union, but the ECHR pushes the Human Rights Convention which the UK signed up to. Essentially, the ECHR argue there is an irreversible harm that will be placed on refugees sent to Rwanda. This is because the action cannot be undone, as if once the refugee is sent, it is very difficult to get them back. The ECHR hasn't argued that the bill is illegal, but more so that the legality of the policy needs to be established, thus the policy needs to wait to be ruled legal. UK government weren't assessing whether this was fair or studying the logistics behind it, but they were hoping to set this bill in place so that the formalities could be figured out afterwards. On the one hand, this is to be seen as expensive and a humiliation. It brings into question whether the UK want to continue its interest in the ECHR or whether it will leave the convention to have fewer legal constraints. A poll by YouGov saw that 44% of voters are for the Rwanda Bill and 40% are against. The 44% are considered to be primarily Tory voters and have right-wing ideologies. The government wished to deter asylum seekers entering Britain illegally, but logistically this makes countries more hostile to asylum seekers. We now have to wait for the legality of the policy to be finalised. The next story. The EU take legal action post-Brexit deal changes. The UK break international law with loopholes found in the Northern Ireland Protocol. The changes the UK are pushing are said to make mass modification in what has been agreed and has taken years to agree. The BBC World News highlighted that the EU and UK remain at disputes over trading arrangements for Northern Ireland. The two entities signed an agreement in January 2020 to prevent a hard border in Northern Ireland. However, the UK isn't happy, and since last Monday, it has published a bill to override this. The EU has responded by launching legal action. It has created mistrust and tensions between currently the EU and the UK over the sudden backtrack. Jessica Parker for the World BBC News said that the unfreezing of legal action that was put in place last year will come into 3 legal actions. One over the UK's delayed checks on food products, one over UK's trade checks, and one over real-time trade flow data. The UK wants to change the text of the treaty which had been signed to, but the EU says no, because it's been agreed on. However, the EU is open to movement on checks and the logistics behind food surveying. The UK wishes, though, to change the tax and the governance, which the EU has no intention of discussing. Therefore, the EU and the UK are currently on completely different wavelengths, and therefore an agreement coming soon is very unlikely. One BBC reporter suggested that this is all about internal politics for the Conservative Party, the Conservative Party wishing to please Brexit hardliners, but the reality must be considered and the EU are not willing to play ball. The next big story is Afghanistan. Sekunda Kermani, BBC Pakistan and Afghanistan correspondent, said a Gurdwara in Afghan capital Kabul was attacked today and left devastated by a 3-hour-long gun battle between Taliban forces and attackers which are believed to be ISIS. The Taliban and Sikh community allowed photos of inside the Gurdwara to be taken, uncovering devastation causing the death of 2 innocent lives as reported by the CNN. There were believed to be 7 attackers who attempted to storm the Gurdwara before Amrit Villa prayers. Singh Khalsa highlighted that, "My house is just in front of the Gurdwara. As soon as I heard firing, I looked out of the window. People were saying attackers were inside. It was chaos. Then all of a sudden there was a blast from outside." Since ISIS have taken a stronghold in Afghanistan, we've seen minority communities repeatedly being targeted. With the retraction of NATO forces in May 2021, the Sikh community there are rapidly diminishing, migrating to India and localities with diaspora links. Afghanistan was once a home to tens of thousands of Sikhs, and now, as a community, only has 150 people there. The rest have migrated out of fear for their safety. On a lighter news, earlier this week, Inderaj Singh, also known as the Bearded Warrior, has set the new British deadlift record. The previous record was 120 kg, but Inderaj broke the record with an extraordinary 375 kg at the recent All England Championships. This is an amazing win for Inderaj, and we look forward to see what else Inderaj achieves. As well as this, last Sunday was the annual weekend 1984 Remembrance March. We saw tens of thousands of Sikhs gather for the annual Sikh Genocide 84 March in remembrance of the Singhs which became shaheed and the atrocities that took place in Amritsar. As the community gathered at Wellington Arch in central London at 12 p.m, the spirit of freedom was ignited as the Sangat marched together. In Trafalgar Square from 2 to 4, the community shared speeches on the history of 1984 and the events following which affected the community dearly. Discussions also took place on freedom and that the spirit must remain high. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening and staying up to date with the weekly news. See you next week.